Okay, going over some Canadian news stories. Feel free to say hello in the chat. I realize at this time there's probably nobody here, but anyway, first story we're going to cover here from CBC. It's should Canada crack down on Elon Musk's Grok AI? Then we got some other videos to react to, but we'll start this off here. Hello in the chat. I realize dang, I did this again. At this time, there's probably nobody here, but
analysis on the story. We're joined by
first story. There we go. Here we go.
By Kristen Thomason. She's an associate professor. For some analysis on the story, we're joined by Kristen Thomason. She's an associate professor of law and senior chair of law, robotics, and society at the University of Windsor. All right, there's a lot here, and I can imagine people at home watching on TV, they're kind of thinking, okay, Indonesia, Malaysia banned it. UK brought in some kind of...
Actually, I'm just going to check one thing. One sec here. Pardon me. Don't mind me here. Okay, back to the
kind of law.
So Indonesia and Malaysia banned Grok. Did they ban X or the actual app Grok? Or that's sort of interesting. I did not know that.
What's the situation in Canada?
As far as we've seen publicly, what has sort of been announced is that there are discussions taking place, but there's no expectation that Canada would ban the app. There has been some law attempted around making platforms more responsible for the things that happen. The Online Harms Act was under consideration, but it died on the order paper when the election was called, and we're waiting to see if that'll come back.
How concerned should we be about what Grok apparently can do?
It's they're treating this thing like this Grok creating bikini images of people like such an emergency. How about the emergency of young people not being able to afford to live in Canada? What about that?
It's concerning for a number of reasons. Of course, it's targeting people with just really, violent, sexually abusive conduct. So being able to sort of create non-consensual, intimate images of other people, and then especially with social media platforms, disseminate those at scale is very concerning. But it's also concerning just the extent to which there is this creation of these images in the sort of eye of the beholder or at the instruction of whoever is operating the generative AI tool, not just Grok. So it's other systems as well. And this is why we really need a structural approach in Canada and other countries, one that looks at the platforms, looks at the companies that make this so easy.
So one thing I'm always curious about, and I feel this comes right into your wheelhouse of expertise, is how much power does a country like Canada have when it's up against these tech giants, in this case, X and Grok, owned by the richest person in the world? Can Canada bring in a law that would protect people when it comes to Grok?
It's not just Grok, by the way, that is doing this. There's these images that are being created on Gemini, on I think on ChatGPT. It's other things. It's just I think the fact that Grok is intertwined with X that people are mad about, but man, it's not really you. It's an AI bullshit image.
I think there is more normative power than maybe we give credit to smaller countries like Canada for holding. Demonstrating in law that this is not permissible and that there will be financial and other consequences as a result of creating these affordances or capabilities to produce this kind of abusive material, I think says a lot. We saw that with Clearview AI when the privacy commissioners in Canada found that it violated Canadian privacy law. The company's not operating here. Yes, it's still operating, but there is an important message that comes through when countries take these measures. And I think when we're talking about child sexual abuse material, when we're talking about non-consensual
I mean, we'll see. We will see what happens because it's not just CBC talking about this. There's actually a global news story on this as well. UK is really trying to crack down on X over these like Grok AI images. We'll take a look at Global News's story here.
Grok, an AI chatbot offered by Elon Musk's X, is now at the center of a global backlash.
They are not harmless images. They're weapons of abuse, disproportionately aimed at women and girls.
Grok has been used to produce graphic.
Carney will try to block everything. Yeah. Do you think so? Man, I don't know. It seems like Canada is a little less crazy about this type of stuff than the UK, at least, but I don't know. If and I know Grok has changed their policy, like you have to now be a paid member to create these images, I think, or something. Sawyer Clan, God bless. Yeah, God bless to you. I mean, we'll see. I just hope that X obviously does not get banned in Canada. That would be so bad for the country.
Of real women and children, stripping them down to bikinis or worse, and sharing these photos without consent.
I want to play that again because that at least Global is actually getting to kind of the heart of the issue. CBC, that video we just watched, they didn't really discuss this.
Grok, an AI chatbot offered by Elon Musk's X, is now at the center of a global backlash.
They are not harmless images. They're weapons of abuse.
Look, there's going to be so much of this probably in the future. This AI crap is going to get, like, it's obviously great in lots of ways, but I think it's about to get really creepy with AI. Just the ability to like generate somebody's likeness with a prompt. I think it's about to be incredible. I think this is going to be like in a few years, people are going to look back and say, wow, we were this mad about bikini images. I just think it's going to be nuts in a little bit.
Harmless images. They're weapons of abuse.
They all run in the same circle. Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, which is crazy. That's another reason I cannot believe people vote liberal. Just voting for all these globalist governments. What is it getting people?
Disproportionately aimed at women and girls.
Grok has been...
Is that the whole like driver of this news story? Is it just that women are mad about it? It seems like if men get upset about something, at least the mainstream news channels don't even care. They barely even bring it up. Like if suicide rates go up amongst men, if drug use, if more social isolation increases among men, I don't think these news stations, it's not like a news cycle like this. There might be one little video here and there, but this Grok story of these bikini images has gotten a ton of attention in the last few days. I made a future pic of my son this morning and it was pretty close. Like what he would look like in the future. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's a very, it's incredible.
Used to produce graphic deepfakes of real women.
Girls.
Grok has been used to produce graphic deepfakes of real women and children, stripping them down to bikinis or worse, and sharing these photos without consent. The UK is the latest country to launch an investigation.
Lives can and have.
I feel like that's unfortunately like the tip of the iceberg with crap like that. You don't obviously want people to be getting like their feelings hurt by stuff like that, but oh my gosh, I think this AI stuff's about to get so powerful. No, Starmer is freaking out. Yeah, he is. He has been freaking out. Yeah, Starmer is crazy. Starmer's like a hysterical crybaby, I would say, every time I see him speak, especially even lately. I think he's even getting more unhinged than normal. One step closer to digital ID with all this AI BS. Yeah. I hope not, but yeah, you're probably right that it's probably closer now than it was a few years ago. Because I think a lot of governments will try to use this obviously to get more control. That seems to be the pattern that a lot of bureaucrats like to do. If they don't understand something, they just go, regulate it, regulate it. We can't have this.
I've been devastated by this content, which is designed to harass, torment, and violate people's dignity.
Malaysia and Indonesia have gone a step further, banning Grok altogether. In response to the
That's interesting. I was in Indonesia recently. So does that mean Grok is banned in Indonesia or X? I think it just would mean, they just said Grok, so I guess the AI arm of the app I wonder if like Chat GPT and stuff still works in Indonesia. He's starting to get worse than Hitler. Are you talking about Starmer? I mean, I wouldn't go that far yet, but
Cry, Musk limited some of Grok's features to paying users only. There are active discussions about how this country should respond. A report emerged in The Telegraph that the UK is trying to rally like-minded countries such as Canada to crack down. In a post,
I just can't believe this is getting so much attention. Is it just because women are pissed off? Again, there's a lot of other like unfair things that happen in the world. I don't really get why this has kind of broken through.
AI Minister Evan Solomon said contrary to media reports, Canada is not considering a ban of X.
And then a bunch of people online, I actually covered that yesterday, in Canada were basically saying, we want to ban X. Bunch of total morons. Even some people that pay for X were saying, we want to ban X.
The Canadian Centre for Child Protection.
I think there are so many leftists that want to go back to the Twitter of 4 years ago when it was woke, and people they just disagree with, they could just mass report and get them kicked off. I think people that are leftists kind of long for that world where they had so much cancel culture power.
And warns lawmakers are failing to keep up with the explosion of AI.
We need to get something in place so that we can get the wheels turning with this, because it's
Like the video, please, and subscribe. I'm probably going to be live for maybe another 40 minutes or so. But yeah, it'd be great to get some more, just the video pushed out a little bit more. No, just Rachel. She doesn't get it that we're going to lose it. She doesn't get it that we're, like Rachel Gilmore, I think you're talking about. You mean we're going to lose like free speech, or what do you mean? Because, yeah, I know Rachel was saying that ban X, but it was other people too. I definitely saw this person named like Steel Talk, and then this other, I can't remember the name of the other account, but I covered that yesterday.
this legislation was needed 20 years ago.
The federal
What?
government failing to keep up with the explosion of AI.
We need to get something in place so that we can get the wheels turning with this, because it's this legislation was needed 20 years ago.
The federal government tabled C-16 last month that would increase penalties for crimes like distributing sexual images, real and fake, without consent.
If you move too quickly, you're going to mess it up. There's a whole lot of nuance, and there's a whole lot of protected expression and protected activity that could be captured if you get it wrong.
The UK isn't waiting, vowing to accelerate legislation that would criminalize the use of so-called nudification apps. Taria.
Geez, so, I mean, I don't think it's like nice, obviously, or good to be creating bikini images of somebody if they don't want that. Like, I wouldn't do that, but the trouble is here is how much are people going to use this as a power grab? I think that's obviously what Starmer is being accused of in the UK, of this finally being the catalyst where he can clamp down on X, because X has been very negative, I would say, to like the leftist globalist elite, because it lets people speak, and then Elon really has an ethos or whatever of letting people talk, even if they're not, if their opinions don't align with the establishment in power. I mean, we'll see what happens. Yeah, it's Rachel Gilmore, the platform. She doesn't get, we're going to lose it. Yeah. I think people like Rachel Gilmore, though, would be happy if X was gone, because then they would just go to Blue Sky or something like that. The left think that it's just the right that's going to lose the platform. I know, but I think the left wants that, because then there's going to be a dominant sort of typing social media like Twitter. And if X is just totally removed from the equation, I think everyone's going to have to gravitate somewhere. And then I think their goal is that wherever they gravitate towards, it's just a more censored thing. I think a lot of people prefer that world where they can kind of cozy up to the powers that be and just learn the game. Like I even saw a thing, I agree with it. I think it was Michael, what's that guy's name? The white pill, Michael, I forget his name, but he's basically saying like a lot of people like the compliance from a government, because then they can compete. They can basically be like a good citizen. And if you can't compete on anything else, you can compete on being compliant. And then you can kind of get a little bit of social status just from like being like a good citizen, listening to the rules. What's that guy's name? I'm usually not this bad with names. He's been on Rogan a lot. Anyway, his podcast is called Michael Malice. But she's paying for the check. I don't think Rachel Gilmore actually is paying for the check mark. She said that it was given to her. At least that is what she posted on X. I know X did do that with some larger accounts. They just kind of gave people the blue check mark. But anyway, we'll go to CTV now here. I have the front bench. It's a little panel. I have not even seen this yet, but I want to kind of test my theory again. Let me know. Do you think, so there's this panel, it's Vassy, and it looks like 4 people. What are the odds that any of them are going to give a right-wing point of view? I want to, like, if anything on my channel in the next little bit, I just want to expose how these liberal networks, Global, CTV, CBC, I'm sure other ones too, but those are the big 3, I think. They don't represent the right-wing point of view in Canada. It's just debates between people that basically agree with each other, if they even do debate.
What a difference a decade makes, or not. Nearly 10 years ago, Justin Trudeau jetted off to China, saying it was time to reject Stephen Harper's approach to the superpower and reset relations in view of a new trade deal. Those talks disintegrated. Now,
yeah, less than 10%. I think so. I think you're right.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is trying again on a reset. Take 2. This time, not from Harper, but from Trudeau. How can we expect it to go, and what are the political stakes? Let's bring in our front bench to talk about that. With me tonight, former New Brunswick Liberal Premier Brian Gallant. He's now the CEO of Space Canada. Corey tonight was Ontario Premier Doug Ford, not from Harper, but from Trudeau. How can we expect it to go, and what are the political stakes? Let's bring in our front bench to talk about that. With me tonight, former New Brunswick Liberal Premier Brian Gallant. He's now the CEO of Space Canada. Corey tonight was Ontario Premier Doug Ford's campaign manager and former Director of Communications for Prime Minister Stephen Harper. He's the co-founder.
Okay, this guy is, I guess, was affiliated before with Harper and then Doug Ford. I've seen this person, though, online before. I don't even know his name. This guy's not right-wing. This guy is very, dismissive to right-wing people. That's what I've seen of him in the past. We'll see what he says here, but this is what they do on these shows. The conservative, but it has a bunch of liberal opinions.
Founder and CEO of Rubicon Strategy. CTV News political analyst and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair is here, as is the Toronto Star's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Rob Benzie. Hi, everybody.
Hey,
good to see you.
And then this is some Toronto Star guy. I doubt, I think I've seen this Toronto Star guy talk before. I think he's left-wing. We'll see what happens in the clip, but I mean, to me, I was totally correct there. Not to pat myself on the back, but these guys aren't going to give a right-wing point of view. And I don't even think Vassy is that bad. I don't think Vassy is that much of a hack. Like, she's probably the best person in mainstream politics. Vassy is nonpartisan only in the election, but she's totally on the government side after that. Oh, really? That's interesting. It's crazy how the left want to cozy up to dictator China. No word from them last week when China was shooting missiles at Taiwan. Totally. He's like Ford, a red conservative. Yeah, I know. That's the way I think of this guy for sure.
Benzie, I'll start with you because I thought it's so interesting that before the plane has even taken off, we have a bit of a controversy in those 2 Liberal MPs who were in Taiwan with this delegation alongside Conservative MPs, and they left early to come home because of the message it was sending China, essentially, that would, be contradictory in their eyes to the message that the Prime Minister is aiming to deliver when he goes. What does that tell you about how complicated this relationship is?
Well, it's hugely complicated, Vassy. And Helena Jasek and Marie-France Lalonde, whom I know because they both were MPPs at Queen's Park before they were federal members, were in Taiwan as part of a multi-party delegation. And the timing would have been really, really awkward for Prime Minister Mark Carney. And we know that sensitivities with China are always high, and it is a fraught relationship. And there's still the hangover of the 2 Michaels being held for almost 2 years and 9 months as pawns in a geopolitical game. So there are so many moving parts to this that I think it's probably wise for them not to be in Taiwan at this time, even though Canada's policy is that Taiwan is Taiwan, and we don't play games on Taiwan the way that some other countries might.
Corey, there's not just like that kind of political issue. There's also the political issue that's kind of not pitted provinces against each other, but certainly there are different interests in the country. The auto sector and EV tariffs up against canola and agricultural products. What kind of potential? Like, is there a potential resolve to that, or is that a further example of how complicated this is?
Well, it's really complicated, and I think China's being very savvy in the way that it's picked areas to tariff to pit one region of the country against another on these.
See, again, they have these panels, but nobody ever disagrees with each other. Maybe I don't get it. What's the point then of a panel? Am I crazy? Aren't you supposed to have some disagreement? You don't have to make it into this crazy hostile environment where you're shouting at each other, but what's the point of a panel then? I'm just going to ask you a question. You're going to give an answer. I'm going to ask, the ratings too, by the way, would be a lot better if you got people on here that would actually disagree with each other.
Things potentially. I think that's being very deliberate. And I think premiers have been very restrained in terms of their approach on this, in terms of not trying to divide the country against itself while the prime minister is trying to negotiate this stuff. Look, where this stuff lands, is going to be
poor China and all their breaches of human rights.
Complicated. And I think the best thing for the government to do right now is probably to lower expectations pretty dramatically, because I don't think any of these things are going to be solved quickly. I don't think they're going to be solved on a first visit. I don't think they're going to be solved absent, a lot of other considerations, not just on China's side, but on our side too, as to who we want to trade with and what those relationships are going to look like going forward, especially given the position the United States is taking in a number of areas. There are things that we would probably like to do with China that the U.S. would react poorly to, and there are things that China would like us to do that would have the same reaction. So I think it's very complicated, and I don't think a lot of it's going to change quickly.
I'm not sure, and I'd love to get your perception, Tom, that there's a whole lot of expectation lowering going on. And that could probably be something we frequently say on a number of different subjects associated with the federal government right now. But even here, they're defining success. They're talking about how the tariffs are on the agenda. And even when we listen to those clips that our producers picked, it really struck me, because I remember covering that first trip in 2016, how high the expectations were set by then Prime Minister Trudeau on a quote-unquote reset. We almost need a drinking game for the word reset, in the same language as being employed 10 years later by this prime minister. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that Mark Carney doesn't want to lower expectations. He is talking the big game, and it's the justification for everything that they do. Whether it's pushing aside environmental and other rules to get projects through quickly, running roughshod, at least in the perception of the First Nations, over First Nations, rights and Inuit and Métis people's rights. So because it's all an emergency, it's the emergency doctrine. It's from 100 years ago. Give me an emergency, and then I can push anything through. I'll change the rules on government advertising because we're in an emergency. I think that the Canadian government is starting to realize the same thing Canadians have realized, that we've been extraordinarily good neighbors. We are the polite neighbor of the Americans. We've been in lockstep with them on big issues of foreign policy, of trade. Just over a year ago, just prior to Donald Trump winning his second election, we put ourselves in lockstep with the Americans for a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. What did that get us in return from the United States? It got us beaten up with tariffs and an intentional attack on our economy. Don't take my word for that. That's what Donald Trump said it was. He wasn't going to attack us militarily. He was going to attack us economically. Right now, Canada is working very hard, and Mark Carney has been very busy going around the world, shoring up markets, making sure the money was there for the big projects he's talking about, making sure we're getting new partners in our trade.
Lisa Raitt and Hang On Looking for Her are the only ones fighting back. You're saying Lisa Raitt has been fighting back?
Trade relationships, and China has to be part of that. Why, Vashi, should Canadian taxpayers be taking even more money out of their own pockets to give to the farmers who are being penalized by China because we put ourselves in lockstep with the Americans and get nothing in return. I think that that is actually on the table. I also think that there's a finite limit to our patience, and putting up with the remonstrations and the nonsense of Donald Trump over and over again, has got us nothing but grief, and it's about time we started acting on it and finding new partners with regard to what we used to talk about a lot in the past when we would visit China. Trudeau was hit with it, and prior to him, Paul Martin. Everybody who was going over was expected to talk about minority rights, Hong Kong, not that they're not huge issues. You know, there are people like Irwin Cotler, former justice minister, who's saying, don't forget, you've got to talk about these things. Carney is signaling clear.
Is Lisa Raitt on these panels quite often, MRAS, or? Because that's interesting.
Clearly, that he hasn't forgotten about them, but he ain't going to be talking about them publicly. He's a business partner. He's a pragmatist. He's going there to make a deal. And I think it'll be a failure if he comes back without some form of deal.
I mean, so what do these people want then? Do we want to diversify away from America, or like, I think if you do that, you have to build these pipelines. Because he said earlier in that statement, Tom Mulcair, running roughshod over indigenous rights or environmental concerns about the pipeline. Like, what are we going to trade with China? Software? Like,
on that, they're saying, you know, they're going to sign some officials today gave a briefing, Brian. They're going to sign some MOUs, but they're not even willing to say, for example, that a deal will be struck for sure on tariffs. In your view, politically speaking, what does the Prime Minister need to come back with in order for the trip to be characterized as a success?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, every time that there's meetings, there's premiers.
Yeah, this is. How can anyone listen to this propaganda machine all day? I feel like our MSM is similar to what it was in Germany in the late 30s. Whatever it is, it's just, you're only getting one side of the argument. Like, what's the point of a panel then? Like I said, this doesn't make any sense to me. You're just asking someone a question, and then you're going to the next person asking them a question. They're all kind of giving a similar point of view. It's either left or centrist. Liberal.
Two Liberal MPs are on their way home early from Taiwan on the advice of the federal government. Helena Jaczek and Marie-France Lalonde were there as part of a parliamentary delegation, but with Prime Minister Mark Carney heading...
Yeah, with Barton, I think. Okay. Maybe I'll look that up, and after this, I'll look that up. I'll see if I can find a recent clip from her.
To China this week, they're cutting their trip short to, quote, avoid confusion with Canada's foreign policy. In response, Conservative foreign affairs critic Michael Chong says two Liberal MPs cutting short a visit to Taiwan because of pressure from government officials is nothing short of kowtowing to Beijing's authoritarianism. Conservative MPs were not asked to return home. We're going to start there with the power panel. We've got Vandana Cotter. She was an advisor to former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Brad Levine is a former national campaign director for the NDP. And here with me in the studio, we've got Kate Harrison. She's a Conservative political analyst. And Rob Russo is the Canada correspondent for The Economist.
Okay, so again, apparently this woman in the white coat thing is the conservative. Will she actually be conservative? Or will it just be the most milquetoast vanilla brand of conservatism you have ever seen?
Good to see you all. Vandana, what do you make of this move? How does the presence of Ms. Jaczek and Ms. Lalonde in Taiwan complicate things for the Prime Minister in Beijing?
Well, I don't think their communications was the best done here. I will say I wouldn't read too much into the decision. I would say what it is that Canada has to speak with one voice. And anything that is different from that, so the Prime Minister goes to China, but then someone's going to ask, what about your two MPs in Taiwan right now? It distracts the message. And the government of Canada has to speak with one voice right now. And I think that is...
Those elbows up, looking like bent knees these days. She is, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen for Canada. I don't know, like, what even if you're... like, if you're Carney, I'm trying to be charitable to Carney. If you're him, I don't know what you do other than I think you try to push through the pipeline, but and just projects like that. But I don't think Carney will do that. I think he's going to try to appease too many people. Like, my prediction is Canada is going to essentially do nothing in 2026. And it's just going to be a year of like the last 10 years have been pretty much of meetings and trying to toe the line and everything's fine. It's okay. We don't need a pipeline. The indigenous people don't want it. The environmentalists don't want it. We'll do a few studies. They'll try to like also keep Alberta happy by just kind of basically lying to them. That's what I predict for 2026. Just more of the same, of just nothing, basically.
It's actually the real thing at hand. And from political operations perspective, you want the focus to be on what the communication of the Prime Minister is doing, not what other MPs are doing. A lot of these trips, just to give background, are like state-sponsored. So they take MPs who are not parliamentary secretaries or ministers to these trips. But I don't necessarily always feel like they add necessarily value, but it doesn't show a change in our position on Taiwan or on China that hasn't changed under Harper, Trudeau, or Mr. Harney.
But just on that, Vandana, there's still going to be Canadian members of Parliament there, right? The Conservatives who are there are not coming home. And I know we draw a sharp distinction here. Don't know if they do in mainland China. It feels like they don't. So, like, you know, isn't any MP there going to present the same challenge, Liberal or not?
I don't think it's any MP. I think it would just definitely be their Liberal leader. So it is the Prime Minister, but it's the same party. So I think even from a China perspective or anyone's perspective, it will be seen as different. Because he's the Prime Minister, again, they have to speak with one voice. But I don't think there'll be confusion if there are other MPs there. They don't take direction from the Prime Minister necessarily in the same way. It is not the leader of their party. So I don't think they'll be seen in the same way.
Kate, how do you see it?
The confusion that's being created is by calling the government MPs back from the trip. If the presence of government MPs in Taiwan is so troubling to China that would derail an entire conversation around the future trading relationship, then it begs the question whether or not there was much materially to be gained from this trip at all, or really the strength of what that partnership might look like.
The China trip or the Taiwan trip?
Yeah, you're right, Emraz. You seem to be pretty plugged into all the Canadian politics. I'm impressed. Yeah, Kate Harrison. Is she that conservative, though? Conservative political analyst. I feel like I've hardly ever seen a quote-unquote conservative on these networks who's actually conservative. They're just like a conservative in name only. Every time they bring up Harper, reminds me of a 20-year-old blaming his parents still, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Or like a 30-year-old blaming his parents still.
The China trip. Okay. So if we are okay to ostensibly optically weaken our support for Taiwan and pulling back MPs from presence on the Taiwan trip because it might create confusion for China, what message does that send about our foreign policy position on Taiwan? I do not think that it is just about mixed communications. I think that because of the demonstrated activity in the South China Sea by China in recent months, which Canada and other countries have condemned, the decision to pull back government members from an existing trip in Taiwan speaks volumes about where our foreign policy may go. And I think that it is possible for Canada to walk and chew gum at the same time. You can maintain support for a democratic ally in Taiwan while also advancing trade talks. And if that's not the case for China, then how serious were we about actually materially benefiting from a renewed trade relationship and trade talks?
Does it water down Canada's support for Taiwan, or does it avoid unnecessary potential provocation with China?
I think
that seems to be the calibration. I don't know.
When we are in an environment where we are talking about democratic nations being invaded on a regular basis, pick the nation of choice.
It's a good point.
It is hypocritical to be concerned about the hypothetical U.S. invasion of Greenland and not extremely critical of any decision by Canada to look at pulling back support for Taiwan at this time.
Yeah, Brad, we are talking a little bit too frequently about democracies getting invaded. But what are your thoughts on this move of the early return of the Liberal MPs?
Well, I think it's another recent example whereby the Prime Minister's clarity about Canada's positioning on the global stage is interrupted or let's say mixed up or lacking in clarity due to trade issues taking front and center. Just a number of days ago, his statement on America taking out Maduro in Venezuela was very weak. Because he had one eye on the CUSMA renegotiations later this year. And then here we have, in order not to offend China, we're pulling two Liberal MPs off of a trip to Taiwan. what signal does that send about Canada's support for Taiwan? He would rather have that gesture, and that the Chinese government recognize that gesture, that we're pulling out two government sitting caucus MPs from Taiwan as a gesture of goodwill in order for the trade conversation to go well. So it's just I think another example. This is second in 2 weeks where trade is trumping the clarity with which Canada is speaking on the global stage.
Rob, I hadn't considered it the way Brad just described it, as a gesture, right? Rather than risk mitigation.
He will go back and she will put him in his place. Who are you talking about there? Who's she in this example?
It's maybe something, as he sees it, designed to appease Beijing. I mean, it speaks to the complexity of this whole trip and the various components to it.
I think it's also a reflection of the reality that Canada has guardrails in terms of its relationship with China. China clearly has guardrails in terms of its relationship with Canada. And when it comes to human rights, when it comes to Taiwan, those guardrails are very, very narrow for Canada. It also, I think, reflects the fact that this is just...
You think Kate Harrison is going to put one of these people on the panel in their place? Do you think that's going to happen? I don't see any really disagreement yet.
It's the beginning of a reset in the relationship between the two countries, and that is embryonic and remains fragile. If they have to bring these two people back, it is very fragile. The last thing I would say is I'm not sure. I'm not a communications person. I'm a scribbler and sometimes a babbler. But it would seem to me to be counterproductive in that it will almost certainly prompt questions about this when Mr. Carney is in China. And if it doesn't, it should. It will prompt questions about Mr. Chalil. It will prompt questions about Jimmy Lai. And I'm not sure that those are the kinds of questions that the Prime Minister would want to answer when he's standing next to Xi Jinping.
Do you think, Rob, I've never gone on a trip to China.
To go for the first time.
Well, there you go. But do you feel this is enough? I mean, if Helena Jaczek and Marie-France Lalonde are the thing that tips it with China, you know what I mean? Just their presence in the region. I mean, is this an overreaction to draw them back? I mean, what's your sense?
I think it's a reflection of the reality that we are thawing out. I wouldn't call it a warm-up. It's a reflection that we've been in a deep freeze and we're still thawing out. And I think, given the Prime Minister going, given the fact that now it seems Scott Moe is going to be with him, there is going to be some progress. And they are, I'm sure, quite nervous
skip a little bit.
And Canada, obviously caught between the economic might of China and the United States, is no exception in that. I mean, but where does this go just in general on foreign policy for a middle power like Canada that historically has liked to punch above its weight, but right now is getting squeezed in a lot of directions?
The focus on Canada's foreign policy on what's best for Canada, and that really means what's best for Canada economically. I think it means we'll connect and share our values simply by being Canada. But I do think when it comes to cases like whether it's canola or the other human rights issues that were raised, connecting with that country is better than not having any connection at all. You're more likely to move further with that if you have something in common where you may not make, those conversations may not make whatever statements come out, but it could be talked in the back rooms. And I've seen that and I've experienced that firsthand where sometimes that's the best place for that type of diplomacy. But at this moment, what Canada's going to do is focus on what is going to be best for Canada's economy and what's best for Canadian jobs and protecting Canadian jobs, given that there are stuck in a number of strange global spheres. We have China and the United States, but a partner that cannot be relied upon. So we have to find other options. And that may mean that the way we talk about human rights might just become, it doesn't mean it's quieter, but it may not be the first statement out there. It might just have to stay in the back rooms.
So Brad,
at least that was kind of interesting towards the end. I was about to say this panel has been so boring, but he's kind of saying there, because the U.S. is not reliable, that Canada can kind of not bring up the human rights violations in China, but just say it in the back rooms instead of publicly. I feel like at least that's a take. Maybe I even agree with her. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. how I feel about that. But at least it's like a take. I feel like the entire panel almost was just nobody actually giving an opinion, which I feel like, again, is the problem with these Canadian news channels. Why they don't do that good is they're boring. Like, you got to make it exciting for the viewer. I don't know what they're doing. Do they just really go out of their way not to have the sort of American-style politics where people are aggressively disagreeing with one another?
How do you calibrate all of that, right? Because this is an ongoing evolution, to use a word, with how we deal with the United States as a country. The things you may want to say that could be cathartic and the things you end up saying because you think they're more strategic. I mean, how do you balance this without just looking like you kind of don't have any values other than the trade value?
That's right. I think within the span of the last 13, 14 months, Canada has gone from a values-based foreign policy where we go around the globe and we talk about the values, whether with our allies that we share.
Yeah, if you're in the chat right now, feel free to say something in the chat. I love interacting with the chat. It's fun. For me, even if you have a suggestion on a video, I'll probably stream for another 20 or 30 minutes. But if you have a suggestion on a video or anything like that, let me know. Feel free. I think I'm going to, after this, see if I can find some clips of Lisa Raitt talking. Maybe I'll look a little bit into some alternative media, because you're not going to get a right-wing point of view for the most part on these Canadian channels, unfortunately. I guess we are too Canadian sometimes. Yeah. Meaning like too nice? Is that what you mean? Because I agree. This panel, though, like I wanted to check it out, but panel's kind of boring.
Or the values that we have in contrast with even some friends across the globe. That was the Trudeau model. The Carney model, to Vanida's point, is jobs and the economy first. The values, and this is will be interesting to see how Canadians react with everything that's going on with the trade irritants coming out of Washington and what's going on in the world stage overall. So much uncertainty, so much troubling incidences around the globe. I think Canada is going to be looking a little bit more insular to fix some of the things that we need to in this country, find new partners. But I think that the standards, it'll be interesting to see what Canadians feel about the standards with whom we deal. That is the notion of doing trade with China.
Yeah, okay, finally you're making a point here, dude. So that, like he's saying, basically, what are our standards going to be moving forward? There's been so much fluff on the panel. Get to the point. That, again, CBC, I don't think it's the perverse incentives or the perverse whatever, I guess incentives is the right word. When you get all this government funding, you don't have to fight to survive. Like, they don't have to be as aggressive, CBC, because they're subsidized by tax dollars. If you're just only subsidized by viewership and ad revenue, you're going to have way more, you're going to want your stuff to be way more entertaining. You can just have kind of this panel where everyone agrees, it's all good. Everyone just kind of monologues for a minute, then gets to their point. I definitely think news in Canada would overnight get drastically better if all the federal funding was totally cut off, 100%, just zero. Just take it to zero. Then these networks will have to survive like every other company. And I think that will be way better for Canadians, for liberal media, for right-wing media.
Feel about the standards with whom we deal. That is the notion of doing trade with China, the notion of doing trade with India, even though there are human rights violations and really, close to home human rights violations in the case of India here in British Columbia. We'll see if if Carney is given the ability to go off and say that we're going to deal with people with whom we may not have dealt with in the past. You saw what he was doing in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, in other Middle Eastern countries where, under Trudeau, we had no relationships with these countries. And Carney's trying to...
At least he's making a point, which I agree with. It's a good question to ask. I know this is an NDP guy, but he's basically making a good point now that where are Canada's standards going to be when dealing with other countries? Like, how much are we going to look into their human rights records and stuff like that? Which, because if you're going to diversify away from America, by far the biggest trading partner of Canada, you're going to have to ask questions like this. Not every country, most countries really aren't this like wonderland of human rights. A lot of countries in the world have pretty sketchy pasts, stuff like that.
Open them up. In fact,
you're watching total BS. Absolutely nothing to do with reality. Everything to do with liberal talking points. Yeah, I don't disagree, Christopher Parks.
After China, he's going to the Middle East. So we see that. So values are going to take a backseat to the economic necessities of Canadians in terms of what our foreign policy outlook will be in the near term.
Yeah, and we have an interview with the Indian High Commissioner to Canada coming up in the next hour of the show. Kate, last word on this about this balancing act of values and value that we're kind of seeing on display with the China trade.
I think it's important to keep in mind that the human rights abuses that occur with China do not stop at Chinese borders. China and Russia, according to the NORAD commander, are regularly more actively buzzing our north. China has interfered in Canadian elections. There is more to be considered here than the plight of the Uyghurs, though that is also something that we should be preoccupied with. The reality is that we would not be entertaining this conversation with China if the Prime Minister had actually followed through on his promise to deliver a new economic and security partnership with the United States. Now we're backed into a corner of having friends in China and Qatar because we failed to secure.
Hold on, I want to catch what you said there at the end.
His promise to deliver a new economic and security partnership with the United States. Now we're backed into a corner of having friends in China and Qatar because we failed to secure the most important trade relationship that we have.
Right. Well, the U.S. plays a role in that too, though, Kate. Like, let's be fair.
How do we think the U.S. is going to respond to pulling back from Taiwan? How do we think that might look to the U.S.?
With Donald Trump, I'm not going to predict anything.
Hey, that was good. Some disagreement. Nice. Finally, 12 minutes into this video.
To be considered here, Commander, are regularly more actively buzzing our north. China has interfered in Canadian elections. There is more to be considered here than the plight of the Uyghurs, though that is also something that we should be preoccupied with. The reality is that we would not be entertaining this conversation with China if the Prime Minister had actually followed through on his promise to deliver a new economic and security partnership with the United States. Now we're backed into a corner of having friends in China and Qatar because we failed to secure the most important trade relationship that we have.
Right. Well, the U.S. plays a
Let's go. Finally, that was good. Finally. And then the guy goes, oh, what Trump? Like the Trump derangement syndrome now is coming out of the host, David Cochran. Well, the U.S. plays a role in that.
Relationship that we have.
Right. Well, the U.S. plays a role in that too, though, Kate. Like, let's be fair.
How do we think the U.S. is going to respond to pulling back from Taiwan? How do we think that might look to the U.S.?
With Donald Trump, I'm not going to predict anything because I have no idea.
I don't think it'll be viewed favorably.
Ah, man, then the show ends. So we got a little bit of disagreement there. I like that. A little bit of fire at the end. I'm going to check out this one video here. I'll take a look for Lisa Raitt. We'll see if we can find any stuff with her. But it's just, if it's too old of a video, I'm not going to play it because I'm trying to keep everything kind of news. Yeah, no, I don't see anything. I'm going to go to this video here. And again, if you have any suggestions, let me know. But I just saw this on my page. Canadian housing crashing, American housing changing with Marty up north. Let's see what these guys say about this, because I hope that, I mean, maybe not I hope that the house prices actually in Canada go down by a lot. Canada treating Mexicans like slave labor from sea to sea. Human rights comparisons. Take a look at your own country too. Canada treating Mexicans like slave labor. What do you mean? Canada treating what do you mean Mexicans? It's only liberals' only card is Trump. Yes, totally. What do you mean by the Mexicans? Because are there? I don't even know, like, percentage-wise, if there are that many Mexicans in Canada. There are way more Mexicans per capita in America.
Yeah, there's actually there's no economic value to Greenland. But I think we can all agree on that, right? I researched that. Is there something there? Sure, but it's under a mile of ice, so it's not really. Maybe in 50 years of more global warming, then Greenland will go back to what it used to be, green, and then it might have economic value. It has no economic value right now. I think Trump is. I do buy the argument that it's part of the protection, right, of the shield to protect from Russia and China or whatever. He can achieve that with a pretty solid agreement with either Denmark or Greenland directly. We'll see how that goes. But I mean, that's and by the way, these things are all interesting, and I love how it's cool that they take some media attention, but I think it distracts from the fact that Trump is actually really doing some good stuff in the U.S. Like, I'm still jealous of Americans because, he's multitasking.
That actually is interesting because it kind of plays into what I said before. Would you ever hear that on CBC Global or CTV, even though it's just true, that America is economically doing way better than Canada is? That's not exactly what he said, but they are. Like, there's a way better chance you can find a high-paying job in America. A lot of places in America, you can actually have a pretty high-paying job and an affordable home, like places like Idaho, Texas, Carolina. I think Carolina. There's a lot of places where you can actually find an affordable life. In Canada, it's very difficult now. But he said, like, he basically gives Trump praise. Why not get somebody on CBC that'll say that? It'd be such a service for Canada for the people that are so, their pattern is just CBC, CTV. They should know that some people think Trump is doing a good job.
Things are all interesting, and I love how it's cool that they take some media attention, but I think it distracts from the fact that Trump is actually really doing some good stuff in the U.S. Like, I'm still jealous of Americans because, he's
and Harper. I might have missed a comment from Mraz, but farm labor. Oh, I live in Saskatchewan too, Sawyer. That's cool. I lived in, Saskatchewan is like, the weather sucks, but but for housing prices, I think lately they've gone up a bit, but it's still kind of a pocket where it's pretty affordable. I lived in Calgary for a while, and I also lived in Toronto for a while. Even Quebec, I didn't really live there, but I spent like a summer there pretty much. At least I've kind of had some different perspectives from other places, but farm labor every summer, they bus in Mexicans by the thousands and totally abuse them. Really? Wow. I don't doubt it, but I've never heard that. Like, I don't doubt it exists, but to what, how big is that? How widespread is that? I guess they by the thousands and totally abuse them. Well, I think in America, I couldn't believe this stat. I'm pretty sure this is true. When I saw this stat, 50% of the farm labor in America is illegal immigrant labor. Like that, I'm pretty sure that's the stat I saw. 50%. So those wages would be whatever they feel like they can pay the people, pretty much. 50%. I don't watch CBC Global CTV for the same reason why I don't eat from the toilet bowl. Yeah. Yeah, you don't get much of a... those networks are just so obviously unfair. And just, if they're not going to do this, but they just called themselves like CTV activism, global activism, CBC leftism. I moved from Waterloo, Ontario 4 years ago and love the West. Some of the best people, but yes, weather sucks. Yeah, the people are really nice too. The people are generally very friendly. That's probably the best part, I would say.
Multitasking, right? Peace treaty here, peace treaty there, get rid of a dictator there, but he's also keeping his eye on the prize, which is bringing jobs here and doing things that help Americans. And Americans are so lucky for that. I mean, look at what he did this week, right? Like, he announced that he's going to shift the laws a little bit and make it more difficult for big corporations to buy individual homes.
I'll get right to this. Let's get right to the
That was good. This is a good move by Trump, actually. I'm not going to keep on this clip because I don't want to talk about American news right now, but I'll play a little more. I'm trying to more so on this channel talk about Canadian news because, yeah, there's enough discussion constantly on American news, even by Canadian networks.
statement that he said. He says here, right on True Social, for a very long time, buying and owning a home was considered the pinnacle of the American dream. It was a reward for working hard and doing the right thing. But now, because the record high inflation caused by Joe Biden and the Democrats in Congress, I'd argue it goes way back before Joe Biden. But he didn't help. That the American dream is increasingly out of reach for far too many people, especially young Americans. It is for that reason and much more that I'm immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying more single-family homes, and will be calling on Congress to codify it. People live in homes, not corporations. I will discuss this topic, including further housing and affordability proposals and more, at my speech in Davos in 2 weeks. So Trump's going to do another speech in Davos. It was an epic speech last year. It's going to be good this year, especially because it's including this. But this is an interesting one because, from a libertarian perspective, is it the right thing to do to tell companies that what they can and can't
to dictate how capital moves around? Yeah, I agree. And
who cares? Libertarian is a good baseline, but you can't live your life that dogmatic in one thing. So I don't know why he said that. Maybe just a libertarian guy, but I think when people are too dogmatic in any political ideology, it's stupid. Libertarianism included. I'm going to go back to see if I can find a little bit more on CBC. I don't watch them either. See them only on the creators' channels. Yeah, pretty much me too. I wouldn't actually just sit down and watch CBC just for the sake of it to the world. The only positive things that are said about the president of USA is on freaking YouTube. The rest of Canadian media just runs the president's name through the dirt, papers, radio, TV every day. Totally. Yeah, they're so obsessed with the elbows up stuff. If President Trump, his goal was to troll Canada with the 51st state stuff, it was the biggest success ever because the media cannot shut up about it. The thing is, though, I think maybe Trump realized this. The Canadian media would have been doing this regardless of what Trump said. So Trump's like, whatever, they don't like me. I'm just going to be hostile towards them, or at least troll them, because if they're not going to approve of what I'm doing, what's the point? I feel like Poilievre should adapt that perspective. And I think he kind of has lately, but he should adapt Trump's behavior in that way of, look, you guys aren't going to like me anyway, so who cares? I'm just going to do exactly what I think is right, and if you don't like it, it doesn't matter, because when Poilievre tries to be conciliatory and play to that crowd, that doesn't work either. They don't like him. A lot of them actually just really have a lot of disdain for Poilievre. I'll play a couple more videos, then I'll probably take off here. There's not much on, I don't really care about that. And a lot of these from the state-run CBC, mostly state-funded, a lot of their videos you would think would be on Canada, but a lot of them are on global stuff, which is pretty stupid, I think. There's this live, but I don't really care about that. Are there other... A veteran diplomat explains the Don Rowe Doctrine. I'm not watching that. I don't want to... This is kind of a funny story, but I don't want to actually watch that. Oh, take a look at this. This will be funny, actually. This will be some triggered leftists about J.K. Rowling. I'm sorry, sometimes my French comes out. Hey, Pau, I can speak French a little bit, but not perfectly. Do you watch Moose on the Loose videos? Yeah, I do sometimes, yeah. I talked about him yesterday on the channel. He's doing good work, I think. It has been 10 years they've been doing it. It is sickening. If you were president, what would you do to Canada? I know they've been like roasting him for so long. The totally wrong approach. Yeah, I don't know what they just cannot help themselves. I almost think the Canadian media like wanted to be like the leftist American media and just have Trump derangement syndrome. Maybe they saw that as good ratings, or they just all kind of in those liberal circles really believe in that kind of stuff, and they don't like Trump's threat to globalism. But this is about BC Harry Potter. I'm sure there's going to be leftists who are going to be mad because J.K. Rowling doesn't go along with the trans agenda.
At first, the Vancouver Park Board embraced the boy wizard, saying in September, "We are very happy to host this event in beautiful Stanley Park." But by October, following complaints from some in the 2S LGBTQIA+ community...
Dog, why do we have to say it like that? Just say it like LGBT is already enough. That's 4 letters.
In the 2S LGBT...
2S LGBT. 2S LG... That's 6 already.
Following complaints from some in the 2S LGBTQIA+ community.
What?
An emotional mea...
That's what they say in Canada? That's 10... Like, no one's going to remember that.
Following complaints from some in the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, an emotional...
That's a phone number plus the area code, number of digits.
No mea culpa.
Sorry. I've been really moved by your words, by the words of all the emails that we've heard.
The backlash over Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling's divisive views on sex and gender issues. But did it harm the event's...
That is very offensive, I think, the way they said that, ironically. That's divisive? It's not. The 2S LGB blah, 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 blah is divisive. And again, this is where the Canadian Overton window is on these networks, that just, it's what they call divisive is just a normal point of view. J.K. Rowling doesn't go along with all the trans agenda. How about the trans agenda is divisive? What about that? Get the heck out of here with that crap.
News on sex and gender issues. The backlash over Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling's divisive views on...
Holy shit.
Sex and gender issues. But did it harm the event's success? Apparently not.
What do you think so far?
Oh, this is just so thrilling.
The Forbidden Forest experience has been extended. The Park Board confirms it's brought in more revenue than Bright Nights did in recent years.
Yeah, because normal people don't, like, the average person doesn't care. They probably don't even know about all this trans crap. They just want to have fun at an event.
Tickets aren't exactly cheap.
It's been a raging success. They've set attendance records, and people have really enjoyed the experience.
Park Board Chair Tom Digby was not available for an interview. He tells me the company putting on the Harry Potter event always had the option to extend it to February 1st at their discretion and without a vote by the board. He adds the Park Board is looking at alternative events for next Christmas. For decades, Bright Nights was the holiday event in Stanley Park. But the charity behind it pivoted to Surrey this past fall, after years of the Park Board failing to keep the marquee attraction, the Stanley Park train, in working order.
It did in year one financially exceed our expectations, especially in a new location, and the public was generous with their donations.
No plans for next Christmas have been confirmed. As for that train, the Park Board says it needs substantial capital investment. and the board is exploring alternative operating models for the attraction, which dates to the monkey era in Stanley Park. Jordan Armstrong.
The monkey era. There used to be monkeys there? What is this, Bali? Look at those monkeys. Those are cool looking monkeys too.
Which dates to the monkey era in Stanley Park. Jordan Armstrong, Global.
That's cool. Man, that would have been fun. A bunch of monkeys running around.
News.
I think I'll probably...
Prime Minister Mark Carney is on his way.
Invest Alberta's relationship with China. I want to do a video on the Alberta independence. Albertans line up for 3. I'll see this from this is good stuff here. See what Moose on the Loose has to say.
Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
Here's Moose on the Loose. I think Sawyer maybe brought. Yeah, who brought that up? Oh yeah, here's Moose on the Loose.
Today accused demonstrators of damaging public property to please the U.S. president.
Alberta independence is growing. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today we'll be talking about Alberta independence and a massive line that had formed to sign the petition to put forward the referendum vote. We've also got updates on the potential ban of X. We got updates on Iran. We got some other stuff. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got Mark Carney doing a handful of posts here. Well, his media team. This one with methane emissions, introducing new, tougher regulations to cut methane emissions and fight the C-word change. Yeah, Canadians don't care about this. Mark Carney's just doing what he cares about and how he's going to make money. This is tone deaf. I mean, look at the comments. It doesn't take far here for him getting fact checked. All of Canada's emissions have been dropping for years, and GDP production. Stop destroying our industries for your ideologies that wrongly vilify us. Got this one here. Last fall, we signed a trade deal with Indonesia, a growing nation of more than 280 million people. No, actually, Justin Trudeau signed that agreement.
Indonesia is like a large, huge country. Jakarta just became the #1 city by population on Earth.
Agreement when he was still in office. This is back 2 years ago. It was just finalized with Mark Carney. This guy loves taking credit for things he doesn't do. Also posting one with the RCMP. We're combating crime, bringing in tougher penalties for violent offenders and hiring more officers. No, you're not. There's so many examples I haven't put on the channel here. There's a recent story just the other day where a guy ended someone's life, went to jail, but then got out of it due to a technicality. It is ridiculous. Like, you basically in Canada, people are getting away with ending people's lives and not having to go to prison for it. And I'm just going
to go to the part where he talks about the Alberta independence.
Reports come out show
42% of 18 to 35-year-olds now support Alberta becoming a country independent from Canada, up 15% in a year. Numbers are up across the board. Wow, 42% of young Albertans, I guess. 42 is pretty good. That's still not big enough to win, but I don't know. Alberta independence, I guess, could happen. I still don't think it will, but it very well could. If things don't improve in Canada, I think it could happen.
That 42% of 18 to 35-year-olds now support Alberta becoming an independent country in Canada. This is coming from...
Moose has a great breakdown of Carney's conflicts. Yeah, I looked at that yesterday, the Moose chart. That's pretty cool.
Research Co., which we have right here. 3 in 10 Albertans open to independence from Canada. In the online survey...
Yeah, so 3 in 10. That's gaining steam. 3 in 10 is nothing to scoff at, I would say.
Of a representative national sample, 31% of Albertans support Alberta becoming an independent country from Canada, up 9% from a similar poll they did in June of 2023. It says 3 in 5 Albertans, or 62%, are opposed to independence, which has dropped by 9%. 7% are undecided. It says 2 in 5 Albertans aged 18 to 34, 42% support Alberta becoming its own country, and that's up 15%, which is huge. The proportions are lower among those aged 35 to 54, 27%. It's up 2, and those age 55 and over is 25% plus 9. Goes on to say separatist feelings rose across 3 major regions of the province. More than 3 in 10 residents of the Calgary metropolitan area, 31% plus 5, voiced support for Alberta independence, along with 29% of Edmonton plus 5, and 34% of those who live elsewhere in the province plus 11. You're not seeing a lot of negative numbers here at all. The only negative we saw here is this one, where people who are opposed is dropping. It goes on to say that you UCP voters are in favor of independence. This is a real movement here, and this is a real problem for Mark Carney, especially he got it from the Bloc as well, or Quebec, and you're seeing this from Saskatchewan. And with that, the new petition that needs 177,000 signatures.
There's Marty. We just covered him recently. Marty up north. We'll have the minimum 177K signatures in 30 days. I think they will. There was a huge lineup in the cold for these signatures.
In 30 days opened up, and look at this. There's a lineup that's 3 hours long for people to sign this. They're standing out in the cold.
Yeah, I think unless the rules get kind of changed, there probably will be a referendum. I would say that. Like, I think that's the direction that this is trending.
Because it curves all the way up.
So the left can say all they want, CBC, the pundits, they can say this is not a real thing. This is a real thing. People are waiting in the cold in Calgary to sign a petition to separate. And you see, there's some older folk here. There's actually a lot of older folk here. It's not all just like a young crew here.
This will lead into my next video, because I'll finish off on one video I just saw. There finally was a video I found from CBC News Toronto about the Canada First protest in Toronto, but Moose on Loose will talk about it here. Breaking: chaos breaks out in Toronto. I was also streaming this from this Travel Fun. That's not me. I was just restreaming his thing. Chaos breaks out in Toronto. Antifa rushes Canada First rally, and one member even punches a cop in the face. You know who never punched a cop in the face? The truckers.
Fake news worldwide. I saw this was being posted in the UK. It's just basically turning out into borderline riots.
This is the craziest you've ever seen.
If you're watching, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers.
So there's a lot of pushing here, a lot of lefties just pushing back against the cops. So you see the line of cops is here. You got the left over here and the right over here. So one of these lefties is going to sock one of the police right in the face with a hook, and then all hell breaks loose. So we're going to look at this cop right here. He pushes this guy back, and this guy punches him like basically right in the eye. Boom. Ooh. So he gets him up high right in the temple.
Holy shit. Holy shit. The cop. Oh my God, he hit the cop. He hit the cop. Oh.
What do you think that guy will get in prison in Canada for that? Maybe like 1 hour of community service with our lax laws?
So it's starting to get a little too rowdy. The cops, yeah, put him down there, cuff him. We have another angle here of the same thing.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's up.
These people are ravenous animals. And the worst part is a lot of them are being paid to disrupt society. So essentially you have real Canadians on one side and a bunch of these wackos, who knows if they're even Canadians at all, trying to disturb society.
He was out on bail in 24 hours, really? Yeah, that does not surprise me.
Once again, blocking roads, wreaking havoc, terrorizing our citizens, going into all the Jewish...
In America, that guy would get, I don't even know what the penalty would be, but it would be huge. Punching a cop in America, like, you would go to jail for a long time for that.
Stores, the cafes, all that, and just threatening people endlessly.
Fascist! Fascist! That's what fascist gets! This is unbelievable! Let's go!
So yeah, it's just ravenous. They arrest that guy. I mean, these guys with their cardboard signs.
That's what fascist gets.
So Canadians are pushing back, but I mean, this is coming to a head here. Canada's had enough of this garbage, constantly disrupting our lives. It's time to deport all these people. So these lefties are not Canadians. They're paid agitators paid by China and Hezbollah. Sam Cooper dropped that bombshell recently on Brian Lilly's podcast, I believe, saying that Hezbollah was the one that's shipping all the cars out of the Port of Montreal and then getting paid for it. And then that money then goes to keep funding the street candy. And they're wrapped up in all this. All this stuff's tied. And we look at the madness that's going down in America. Look what's happening in Minneapolis. This armed
Okay, I'm going to finish off here with this. I just saw this on my feed. See, yeah, they actually did finally cover this rally. Look, this is that same stream. This is CBC News Toronto. 8 charged after anti-immigration rally and counter-protest. I'll finish the stream off with this. It's about a 2-minute video.
Videos filmed by people on the ground show police pushing what is believed to be counter-protesters, a group upset with the message of the anti-immigration rally. It started outside City Hall. Later, as they marched, police separating the two groups. When video shows an officer punching a counter-protester, that person punches back, and police go after him. In another video, this one sent to CBC News, officers are then seen kicking the man. On social media Sunday afternoon, the Toronto Police Association wrote, "Our members were pelted with eggs, used toilet paper, and plastic bags with what appeared to be urine. This violence cannot..."
Gross. What a scumbag move from those counter protesters. That's so disgusting. Several arrests were made. Thankfully, our members were not seriously injured. This violence cannot and will not be tolerated.
And will not be tolerated. Toronto police say they initially arrested 9 people during the protest, though 1 was released without charges. They allege 3 officers were assaulted. Investigators say the 8 people charged are between 23 and 50 years old. The charges include throwing an explosive, assault, being a member of an unlawful assembly, and obstructing peace officers.
The police were like really shoving people.
Gisela McKay was acting as a legal observer for the counter-protester group.
What are the police supposed to do? They were really shoving people, so what?
She says the police were too heavy-handed. In one instance, she says someone's hip was broken. In another, it was a foot.
So between the...
Why does CBC even put morons like this on the air? Like, holy.
The police were like really shoving people.
Gisela McKay was acting as a legal observer for the counter-protester group. She says the police were too heavy-handed. In one instance, she says someone's hip was broken. In another...
People like that just want the country to burn. They have no interest in making things better. They just want the country to be chaotic, anti-growth, just a complete mess.
It was a foot.
So between the beatings, between the just the excessive brutality.
Why is this person on the news? Why would you even email this idiot, or not interview this idiot?
Just the excessive brutality with people being arrested, between criminalizing people. They declared it an unlawful assembly.
McKay says she didn't see what the police association described officers facing. The 8 people arrested face a total of 29 charges. Lorenda Redicott, CBC News, Toronto.
I mean, yeah, we will see what actually happens, I guess. They are the gasoline. That's why they are on the news. Yeah. To mess with our minds, to mess up our minds. Yeah, it's stupid. Anyway, I'll finish the stream there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for all the chats. Have a great day. See you in the next stream.